evening, everybody. It's the Gut Doctor, Nick Thompson. I'm here to discuss bones this evening. It seems like ages since I've seen you. I hope you're well. Hope your animals, whether they're dogs, cats, llamas, cattle, sheep, whatever, horses. I hope everybody's well, and you humans are faring well as well. Spring is nearly upon us. The evenings are getting lighter. The mornings are getting lighter. All is great. So we're going to be discussing bones today. We're going to be discussing with Rosy. Rosy, who is my saviour who is my I guess she'd be the stage manager in a theatre, or she'd be my director if if we were making movies. And I'm going to say hello. She's coming in just now. There she is. Hello, Rosy. How are
Hi.
you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Really, really well.
Mm.
Thanks. How are all the animals on the farm?
They're okay. Thank you so much. They're
Great.
yeah, they're doing really well.
Excellent.
Oh,
Everybody's well. And we've also got Alex. She's coming in to see us. She's just been running around her house like a mad thing, looking for bones as props. So we're going to very welcome Alex to come in. She's going to come in 3, 2, 1. There she is. Hi, Alex. How are
Hi, I
you?
am good, thank you. I've managed to find a couple of props and had to keep Dee Dee, my dog, downstairs so she's not begging for the bones throughout the panel.
So yeah, she does. So she doesn't eat the props before they actually
Yeah.
get a chance to do some good. Absolutely, that's brilliant. Well, um, lots of people coming on here with links. I'm not sure what that is, but looks like everybody's busy. Fiona's with us, which is great. Hiya, Fiona, and Diana is there. Great to see you again, Diana. Fabulous. Well, great stuff. So, guys, I'm not sure how you'd like to play this. Rosie, you say you've got lots of questions, which is fantastic. And Alex, you say, I think you said that you're. Oh, hang on. I'm assuming everybody knows who we are, so I think they know who I am. And Rosie, they know who you are by reputation, if
my
nothing else.
props.
Do you want to just do a tiny intro and just say who you are and what you'd like to get out of this evening, Rosie? And then Alex, if you can do something similar, that would be great. You know, where you're coming from, how long you've been feeding raw or not, and what you'd like to get out of this evening. I think that would be a great place to start.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everybody. I'm Rosie. I'm the marketing person over at one of the marketing people, sorry, over at Verm-X. I have got two dogs and a cat who are all raw fed. I unfortunately can't raw feed everything else. They're arable and the oh no, the snake technically he's raw fed, I guess.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So two
Yeah.
dogs and a cat, and I'm desperate to. I'm actually here. I feel like I don't know enough about bones, probably for a raw feeder.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear your advice on a couple of things, Nick, but also I'd love to hear some feedback and some questions from everyone
Brilliant. Yeah.
in the comments as well. And we'll get through as many of those as we can.
Yeah. So please, Laura, Erica, Diana, Joshua, Edie, you guys, please, lots of questions. Jane is here as well, and Jenny is here. Great. So you're very welcome to ask lots of questions, guys, from all over the country and the world, indeed. So great. Lovely to see everybody here. Alex, tell us a little bit about you and your dogs and what you'd like to get out of today. And there's something interesting. You've got a dog who can't eat bones. Is that correct?
Me?
Yes.
No,
Oh,
so
no. There was. I had a conversation with somebody very recently. They said, "I love to feed bones, but my dog cannot tolerate them for some reason. Maybe they haven't got any teeth or something." Um,
oh,
um, and but you feed bones to your dogs. So tell us
yeah,
about that.
yeah. So my dog is called Dee Dee. She is nearly 4 years old, and I've been raw feeding her for the past 3 years. And we feed bones regularly. Dee Dee loves the raw meaty bone um, for recreation. Really enjoys it. And I think, yeah, what I'd like to get out of today was, before I started raw feeding, I was seeing lots of people feeding bones, whether they were a raw feeder or not. And I wanted to do that for my dog, but there was something that it seemed a little bit scary or a bit unsure. And I had loads of questions at the time, which I got answered from watching panels like this and reading up. So if I can share any of my experience or help answer any questions, because I'd love to do that.
That's brilliant. Very much for that. Okay, so I think everybody's got lots of questions. So go ahead. If between us, we can discuss the ins and outs and our experiences with these things. And I think it's going to be really, really useful. It's one of those questions which is together with things like the myth that raw-fed dogs will get salmonella. It's one of those things that's really right up there. Benefits, bugs, balance, and bones. So bones is a really key question. So Rosy, go for it. If you want to ask some questions, you're representing everybody here. So do shout, and we'll get through as much as we can today.
So I've got two. Oh, I'm echoing. I don't know why I'm echoing. Hopefully I'm not echoing too badly. I've got two kind of key themes for me to my questions, and I can see a lot of them kind of coming through in the comments as well, so I'm excited about this. And prong one of my question sphere is beef bones, because I've always just, and this is really bad, obviously I've always supervised my dog, and I think that's a really key thing. Like when you're giving your dog bones, just make sure you're kind of in the room really, and you've got an eye on what's going on, especially if it's kind of the opening, the sort of if you're bringing them into it gradually. But like a lot of beef bones and load bearing bones, I get told they're not the safe bones to give people, and I've access to a lot of cow bones through my life in general, and I would love to know your thoughts, Nick, on kind of, so when you're feeding a beef bone to your dog, what's safe, what isn't safe, what do you do about it?
Okay, I'm going to give you like a really broad picture here, because this might be a foundation for you to think about bones. I'd love to get Alex's take on this as well. But for me, the baseline, because everybody's terrified of feeding bones, and they shouldn't be, because if you think about it, dogs have been eating bones for millions of years. Okay, they are very, very good at it. The thing is, in nature, they start eating bones from 3-4 weeks of age. Okay, mum comes home and she's chewed gristle and bone and meat and what have you, regurgitates for the pups, and they dive into that, and that's how they eat. So from day one they are exposed to this bony material. And with us, sometimes if you've been feeding your dog for kibble for 4 years, and then you suddenly see the light and you think, aha, right, I've got to feed raw, and then you've got to think, oh gosh, how do I feed bones? That's a slightly different scenario from Mother Nature feeding bony material from the word dot. Okay, so, and we can go into that. How do you start puppies on bones if you fancy? But the bottom line is that I divide bones into 3 different categories. We've got primary school bones, we've got secondary school bones, and then we've got college level bones. So that we know, and it's, you graduate, you can't go to secondary school until you've done primary school, and you can't do college until you've done secondary school. Okay, so this is kind of how a graduation of bones. And so therefore primary school bones are the simplest of bones, and so for me they would be duck necks and chicken wings and turkey necks and duck necks. What's that? Is that a turkey neck? It's a duck neck.
Bit of a frosty one, but yes.
It is absolutely amazing. So there you go. It's a really simple thing. And you see how it's really quite big. Okay. Alex is obviously very delicate and dainty and what have you, but that's a socking great duck neck in her hand. Yes, almost as big as her neck. So they are pretty chunky things, and don't be scared of giving small dogs big bones. Diana was saying about she's got a dog who gets through bones really, really quickly. Don't be scared about giving small dogs big bones, because that's innately a safe thing, especially when you're starting, because if the bone is bigger than their head, then they can chew on it for days and they're still not going to get it to any kind of size where they can mistakenly take it down into themselves. Anyway, just talking about, so primary school, secondary school, and college level bones. So primary school is the soft stuff, the softest stuff you can get hold of. The archetypal primary school bone is the chicken carcass. Okay, in the old days, 10 years ago, butchers would give chicken carcasses away. Now they've cottoned on to the fact that there are all these raw feeders, which is a sign of the times. There are so many raw feeders, they can actually sell the things, but they're still dirt cheap, 50p each, something like that. So that's where you start. They're big, they're soft, they're not very bony, and it's a great way for pups and dogs new to bones to get introduced to the concept of bones. And you would do those for a month or two. They really get they really learn their technique with those, and then you can move to secondary school bones, which for me would be things like ribs and brisket and perhaps a vertebrae. And here's one we had earlier. Here's one I prepared earlier. As they say,
my input for this panel is the prop person.
You couldn't send your kids
my goodness
to school.
That is epic. Alex,
This is a venison rib, I believe.
Venison ribs. Oh my god, it looks like something from Silence of the Lambs.
And Dee Dee is a small to mid-size spaniel cross collie, and this she will do this very, very quickly, under 10 minutes, and she will Wow. She likes her bones, so that wouldn't last her long, but I guess for other dogs that would be a considerable effort. So I guess it's like feeding the dog in front of you, isn't it?
So that's great. So I would say any size dog could have those, and I'm really happy to talk about size of bones for dogs. I think that's quite an important thing that we do need to cover before the end of our time here. So that for me would be a secondary school bone, and pretty much any dog could have that, more or less, regardless of size. If you've got a Chihuahua, you might want to just separate it out into individual ribs, but don't be too quick with the knife. And for me, the bigger the better, that's for sure. Okay. And if you've got dogs who've only just started with bones, then definitely the bigger the better, because they can't mistakenly take a tiny little chicken wing and go and take it down all in one go. Yeah, because if you're giving them something that's quite big, then they can't eat that all in one go. If you go to college level, and this is for veteran dogs who've been chewing bones for many, many, many months, if not years, you can then start thinking about the much more brittle leg bones. And this would be the marrow bones. These would be the long bones here, for example, not kind of knuckle bones. I would say knuckle bones are kind of advanced secondary school bones, because that all the bone fibers are going in many different directions, and therefore they're not particularly brittle. Whereas when you get into the shaft bone, that can, because it's all the strength is in one direction, because they're designed to keep cattle off the field and allow them to walk around and graze. Okay, all the strength is in one direction. So if they crunch them from the side, you can get a kind of a brittle shattering effect, and therefore I would only give those types of bones, the classic marrow bone, to a veteran raw feeder, a veteran bone eater of they've been eating bones for a year or more, okay, when they really know what they're doing. And it's ironic because the first thing people do when they think about bones is they think about going to the butcher, going to the supermarket, getting a marrow bone and giving it to the dog. And all I'm saying is go for primary school bones to start with, and then you go for secondary school. And then once you've really, a year's gone by, everybody's great, they know exactly what they're doing, that's the time to go for the more advanced bones. So that's it. Alex, have I missed anything? Is there anything from an owner's perspective that you want to share?
Oh, what do I want to share? I think just to say that there's some amazing comments that I can see in the chat. loads of people already feeding bones and giving advice to other people on the feed.
Brilliant,
so that's really great to see.
Yeah.
I think for me, I just started off small and slow and steady with it as well. And as you start to feel more comfortable with it, well, you get more comfortable, and then it's you see that your dog doesn't have any issues eating that bone or doesn't like that bone much, and then you can try and change and try new things. I think my props are probably my favorite bones to feed. I really like feeding the ribs because I feel like it helps with, Dee Dee has to hold it in different places, and it helps to clean her teeth as well as give her an enjoyment. Whereas, if I gave her a chicken foot, for example, it would be gone in two chomps. And I've seen a couple of people have put on the chat that they're a bit worried that their dog does like to eat quickly, and is it a problem giving those smaller bones, and what should they give? Should they give larger bones for those dogs to chew on? So I don't know what you think about that.
Okay, so let's talk about size. Haley Fife says, I've got a bulldog who has a very large mouth. What bone should I start him off with? I would start him off with, say, chicken carcasses. Okay, really big. The bigger the better. Big bones are the best way to start dogs if they're adults. Okay, starting puppies and starting adults is two different things. So if it's for starting adults, you've been feeding kibble for many years, and all of a sudden you want to feed bones to your raw fed dog, I would suggest feeding bones to kibble fed dogs is potentially dangerous thing to do, because you eat kibble like baby food. Okay, whereas a bone is proper food and you've got to address it properly. But if you're being fed raw food, then you do have a better idea of how to address real food. So I would say, if you're starting a dog off with bones, Haley, I would get some knuckle bones. These would be the end of the long leg bones. These are big bones like this, okay, because you cannot, even as a bulldog, break those off easily, and you'll get used to getting into those. Okay, so those would be kind of recreational bones. You chew. In terms of what bones can I eat in order to contribute to the diet for minerals and fiber within the bowel, I would say you start all dogs down at the bottom end in primary school with chicken carcasses, and I think that would be the way to do it. So I hope that's useful. Alex, any thoughts on size of bones?
Well, I've had a couple of thoughts. One was just to say about cooked bones, obviously, that this is a chat on raw bones today, and that should never feed your dog cooked bones.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, health and safety disclaimer.
Yeah. That is, I mean, we cannot.
We should have that running along the bottom.
Enough. Yeah, but also anything that kind of comes in kind of a plastic wrapper from the pet shop is pretty bad idea. So if they're smoked or whatever they do to bones, basically it's got to be straight from the animal. If it's been in the freezer and then out of the freezer, that's absolutely fine. But anything else, smoked, dried, all those things, I'm not quite so sure. As fresh is the way to go, I feel. Great. So Alex, thanks for that.
Yeah, and on that as well, someone had put any advice for people that are worried about their dog's teeth breaking on bones. I mean, I've not ever had any issues myself being worried about that, but is that something that people should be worried about?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the premolars. If anything's going to go, then it's going to be the premolars, which for me is why you start with the softer end, and they literally, there's the phrase you cut your teeth on something. You cut your teeth on bones that are simple to chew. Yeah, primary school is the soft bones, so these would be the duck necks, turkey necks, and chicken carcasses, duck carcasses, and then you'd move to ribs, which are pretty soft, as you've seen there, Alex. Yeah, your Dee Dee, who's about 20 odd kilos, she'll go through. I'm amazed she'll go through that in 10 minutes. That's going. That really is going. Anyway, she'll get through that. So they're not. It looks really substantial, but actually she'll get through that very quickly because it is relatively soft. Ribs don't they protect the heart and the lungs and what have you in the thoracic cage, but they don't have weight going through them in one direction. Therefore, the brittleness is much reduced. Same with vertebrae. Yeah, your vertebral column. So those are okay. So I would say that's probably the way to go with that one. I can't remember what the question was now. What was the original question?
Damaging teeth, dogs damaging teeth.
Yeah. Damaging teeth. Yeah. If you don't do primary school and then secondary school, then you're not very well educated. And equally, if the dog hasn't done primary school bones and then secondary school bones, they're not educated with how to use these bones properly. If you have a kibble-fed dog and you just give it a bone, say you give it a marrow bone, which is the classic kibble-fed dog, you think, oh, there's a thing about raw food. I think I'll give my dog a raw bone because it'll be a really, really great idea. And the dog has been eating baby food all its life, may not have very good teeth. You then give it this brittle marrow bone, and number one, it breaks a tooth because it's eating this really, really tough marrow bone. And number two is the dog will lick out all the marrow and it will get this overdose of fatty material into its gut and probably have the squits for 3 or 4 days. So if that doesn't put you off putting kibble dogs on bones, I'm not sure what would. Okay. So I think avoiding long leg bones in all but the veteran dogs is a good idea, but knuckle bones is not a bad way to start for recreational bones, kind of to entertain the dog, is a good idea.
Definitely. Another thing that I think is quite important to mention, I guess, with bone, certainly from my end, is like checking poo and just making sure like what the levels are in terms of how your dog's poo is. Sorry for being, it always comes back to poo and ends, especially with if checking your dog's poo and making sure that it's not going too white, too crumbly, that you're not seeing like massive shards of bone in it, that would obviously be a bad kind of thing. So one of the biggest kind of, when you're worrying about the safety of feeding bones, like it's not just what goes in their mouth, it's obviously what's coming out the other end as well, and keeping on top of that and checking. So that's how you'll know, especially if you are raw feeding your dog, that's how you know whether you're kind of bringing your balance back into line, is through the poo.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. A couple of questions here. Dogs can regurgitate bone, so if they do, they might just want to have another go at the bone. Yeah, if they swallowed something and they regurgitate, then it's fine to let them have another go at that. I tell you what is, and this is kind of to do with feeding bones, but it's kind of to do with kind of a behavioural thing. If you've got two competitive dogs and you give them bones, even if you give them separate bones and they're in the same room, one of the dogs, probably the more subservient of the two, may well try and down that really quickly, because they know that as soon as the more dominant, I'm trying to avoid dominant as a phrase, but the stronger character of the two might come along and pinch their bone, and so they might try and neck it very quickly. So therefore, if there's any degree of competition whatsoever, I would feed 2 bones in separate rooms, or put one in the garden and one in the kitchen, something like that, in order to separate them. That's just politics, but I would suggest that's a good idea. The dogs who are going to have problems with bones are going to be not really big bones, not really big dogs like Danes or St. Bernards or Leonbergers, or the really big guys, and it's not going to be the small guys. The big guys are so big that they can pretty much get anything they swallow down their throats. The little guys are so small they can only kind of chomp little bits off, and so they tend to take in. It's the middle-sized dogs, it's the staffies, it's the bulldogs. Those are the types of dogs who, if anyone's going to get anything stuck anywhere, those are the ones. So with those guys, you either need to be feeding softer material so that they can chomp and take it down in their own time without competition, or you need to be giving big recreational bones like this, where it's so big that they can only kind of chomp their way through it a little bit. So that would be an important thing to think about in terms of size and the politics of feeding bones.
Yeah. I'm interested in a couple of these questions that we've got coming in from everyone. My goodness me, there are a lot of them.
Okay, I've got one here from Diana. She said, "What
Yeah.
if your dog has a chicken sensitivity?
Yes.
Well, if your dog's got chicken, you can't feed chicken carcasses. Therefore, you could look at getting duck or turkey carcasses, Diana. That would be the way around it. Okay, they're all pretty similar. They're pretty soft and great place to start dogs on. If you've got a dog who's been eating bones for a long time, you can still feed chicken carcasses, turkey carcasses, duck carcasses, things like that. Absolutely fine.
There was a comment that I saw earlier that I just wanted to answer, because I had the same sort of questions. It was, if you're feeding an 80-10 sort 10-10 diet already, a raw diet with bone in there, and then if you're adding in recreational bones, should you balance that out? What should you do? And I guess it kind of relates to what Rosy was saying as well, about kind of the poo and how your dog takes that level of bone and being wary about that.
Brilliant. Yes. No, I think that's great. So there's an easy guide for that. If your dog is consistently getting chalky poos, then you probably need to increase the amount of veggies that are going in the front end. Okay, so the question was, if you're feeding 80-10-10, so there is a bone, there's some kind of ground bone going into the dog from the 10% bone in the mince that you're feeding, and that would be most people, whether they're feeding an 80-10-10 or a complete, there will be some bone going in. If you then give extra bone every single day, and dog gets really bunged up quite a lot, then you're feeding too much bone. So either you need to increase the amount of veg, or you need to just say, right, we're not going to feed extra bone every single day, we'll feed extra bone twice a week, something like that. Or you feed such the recreational bones that you want to give every single day, is you feed whacking great dinosaur bones like this, so that the dog can have those for an hour or two every day, and they're so big relative to the size of the dog's mouth that they just entertain the dog without them actually taking in much bone. So there's quite a lot to be said, even for bones that aren't that consumable. And when you're choosing bones, the meatier the better. The meatier the better. It's quite difficult to get these days, because butchers and the machines that they have at abattoirs are very good at getting meaty bits off bones. But if you can get meaty bones, then that's really brilliant. If you've got a local butcher who is a bit of a dog lover, and he can leave a little bit of meat on certain bones, that's brilliant. The beauty of ribs is that you always have that intercostal muscle, and so they are brilliant value. If you had just one bone to go for, kind of regardless of size of dog, I think ribs really tick that box. Either lamb or venison, or even beef ribs are brilliant things to go for. So ribs are a great go-to. Any other questions? I can't talk and read at the same time.
I like Michelle's question that's just come in here. Actually, there's two that I really like the look of. Can you give any types of bones to puppies under 9 weeks old?
Yeah, you can. And things like ribs are brilliant because they're so big. The size of a puppy's head. Even Alex has disappeared. I wonder where she's gone. Not
Alex.
sure. I'll
She'll pop back in.
I'll put her back on as soon as she comes back in. So puppies are so tiny that you can, if you give them chicken carcass, it's twice as big as their head. So it's a really safe thing to do. They can just chew and get used to that. But even with ribs, they're really quite soft, and therefore they can just start at one end and go chomp 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 from one end, and they tend to be quite safe for bones as well. I think staying in the room initially while your dog is getting used to it for the first month or two, getting used to it, but after a while, just think the dog knows what to do, and you can just leave them to it. Okay, because it is inherently a pretty safe thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. I like the question that's coming from Kelly as well. If your dog's got IBS, I mean, I feel like you'd probably need to investigate that a little bit more before cracking on with the bone.
Sure. If you've got IBS, if your dog is sensitive to chicken, don't feed chicken bones of any description, chicken necks or chicken carcasses, what have you. But if your dog's fine with that and they've got IBD, it's actually IBD. If your dog's got IBD, i.e., the very sensitive gut, don't give them any protein source that might flare them up. It really is as simple as that. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. If your dog's sensitive to venison, don't give venison. If your dog's sensitive to chicken, don't give chicken. It's simple as that. But you can give other bones. Bones are okay for an IBD dog as long as that bone is okay for that gut.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of, yeah, a good one. I mean, another thing that's like amazing, I think, about bones that we haven't even covered is bone broth. I mean,
bone broth. Oh wow!
What a thing!
It is an amazing thing. I mean, I use it. How do you use it? Before I give you my spiel on.
So, I make a lot of it. We're really, again, lucky in that I've got access to a lot of bones.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a question that's popped up there as well: is where do you get your bones from? Which is interesting. Yay! Here she is.
Hey, Alex is back. Great.
We've moved on to our favourite topic
bone
between
broth.
the two,
We've moved on to bone broth, Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you've been talking about that.
Very kindly, Alex even developed a bone broth recipe for us, which is amazing, which is on the Verm-X website if anyone wants to see Alex and Dee Dee's bone broth recipe. It's very good. So I use bone broth. I give it frozen a lot of the time just as a treat from a mold. I will use it in all sorts of ways. I just keep so much of it in the freezer. We've usually got a drawer of it in the freezer at all times, in different formats. But they don't get it every day. Every sort of 3 or 4 times a week, they'll definitely get some. And I just think, especially if they've had a really busy day. So I always think it's probably a really good, like, rehydrate, like the nutrients that are in it are so concentrated that I think that it's definitely a great thing to kind of to replenish them. That's how I agree.
Totally agree. I love bone broth, and I will use it in the young, in the old, in the sick, in the healthy, in the athlete, in the couch potato. Everybody gets bone, as far as I'm concerned. Really, really fantastic. Alex has got a fantastic recipe there. You can see it on the Verm-X website, and thank you to Verm-X for allowing us to put time aside to get this lovely podcast video organized. But I was going to say, if you want it really, really simple, because I'm no cook, basically you get bones, you get a big pan with a lid. Make sure it's got a lid, because otherwise your bone broth will decorate your house through steam. And you just boil it for as long as you can. I boil my bone broths for up to 48 hours. Okay, so because you're trying to get all the goodness from the bones into the solution, so that you can then put that solution into food or freeze it into treats and things like that. How about Alex? How do you use bone broth with Dee Dee?
Yeah, and I've been put to shame because Lauren in the chat says I haven't got any to show as a prop, and I should do, because there is some downstairs in the freezer. So yeah, I just think you can't beat that when you're thinking about supplements to give to your dog and for ease. Like, it's one of my go-to. I think, every dog should be fed bone broth because it just has so many benefits, and you can make it easily if you want to make it, and you can buy it from your local natural dog shop as well if you don't want to make it. And I did used to give it frozen in paws, but I'm paws, silicone mold, the in paw shapes. I'm really bad at remembering to do that. So actually I just freeze mine in jars, and then I just defrost it and pour it on, as and when. I'll spoon it out depending on the consistency of the broth. And I give it to my family's senior dog as well, because he's a bit arthritic now, and I know it's really good for joints. I know it's really good for gut health. yeah, give it as a treat. Hydration, you know, as well. If your dog isn't a massive water drinker, I think it's a good way of getting some good fluids into the body as well. So yeah, it's
That's
just
amazing.
something.
What about sourcing, guys? Where do you get your bones from?
Obviously, the raw food shop is step number one for me.
Okay.
Again, I am lucky in that we are, because we've got our own bone. You can actually, I don't know if you can hear my dog eating a chicken foot next to me. That's a really lovely sound. Sorry about that. Yeah, we've obviously got our own bones, which obviously will freeze. We freeze them for months anyway, and then we'll defrost them and have to give them to the dogs. But mostly, yeah, I don't tend to go to the butcher. I would stick with the raw dog food shop, just on the basis of then you've got a decent provenance and you know where it's come from, and you go from there.
Great. How about you, Alex? Where'd you get your bones
Yeah,
from?
so I started off getting it from the local dog shop. But I also go to the supermarkets, and I've got some really good bargains on lamb ribs and things that are reduced. You know, I'll pop them in the freezer and get them out and get some real good bargains from the supermarket as well. So I think you don't have to go to the butchers or the dog shop. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend.
That is brilliant. And Morrison's, for example, they do soup bones. They bones that yeah, they do for tuppence halfpenny. You know, probably a quid for a couple of bones or something.
Morrison's is where I wasn't gonna name the supermarket, but that's where I've got my.
But
that's where I got my lamb. I've got lamb ribs from there. Great.
Yeah. And lamb tends to be grass-fed. It's quite difficult to intensively rear lamb, so that's good that they're extensively reared. So that's good. You know, we need to think about the welfare of the animals who are feeding our beloved animals. You know, I think that's really important. Yeah, totally. So, yeah, supermarket, raw store, support your local raw store. They are having a hard time of it at the moment because the cost of meat has risen because of price of petrol and, you know, all those things.
The cost of freezers.
And the cost of freezers. Oh, the cost of electricity has gone through the roof. Yeah. So all these. So please do support your local raw store, because they're doing their best. They were there for you when times were good. So if we can be there for them now, times are a bit more difficult for them, that'll be absolutely brilliant. So there we go. Yeah.
Can I have one last one? I want to shout out Rachel in the chat, who's been giving some really safety focused feedback, which I'm really cannot support that enough, I think. But she's just said there that the supermarket bones, that they can be cut with machinery and can be quite jagged. And again, I just think that's really important to, with any bone that you get, whether it's from the supermarket or from the anywhere, basically, the raw dog food shop, whether it's from my cows, you just check it. Please check it before you, because accidents can happen, mistakes can happen, and as part of being a dog, a responsible kind of dog owner, you want to be checking what you give your dog before you give it to them. I think is a good, really helpful point from Rachel.
Yeah, brilliant. Rachel, hello. Nice to see you there. Thanks very much for that. She's been feeding bones forever, and she knows. She's been feeding raw, and she's very knowledgeable about these things. So thank you for those comments. That's really brilliant. So any closing comments, guys? Alex, closing comment. Any thoughts?
Well, I just that I hope that this chat has helped people with some of the questions that they might have had. There's been loads of lovely chat in the comments. So if people were wondering about feeding bones, hopefully they've got a little bit of information to help them on that journey. Sounds a bit weird, but it's really satisfying seeing my dog enjoy a raw meaty bone and enjoy a food. So if we can do good for our pets, and then then that's good for me. So hopefully some people have got some good advice.
I
how
know.
about you, Rosy? Rosie's from Verm-X, who is sponsoring this evening, and so I would say I'm just going to put a plug in for Verm-X, and we use Verm-X on our dogs and our peacocks and our chickens and on the cat and everything else. And I think it's a great place to go. We use it from the worm perspective, but also just from gut health perspective, and that keys into the whole raw thing, which keys into the bone thing. So sorry, Rosy, you were going to give us some just final thoughts.
I had, I've lost it now. I'm all flushed out. Just to say that Nick has really kindly written us a longer form bone blog on the Verm-X website. If you go to the Verm-X website, it's on the homepage there, but it's very specifically about bones for puppies. So anyone that did have any kind of puppy bone questions, I would be really keen to direct them to that, to just have a read. And as always, like, we'll definitely go through the questions, and anything that we think we could do a maybe better job of answering, I'll collate those and we'll email out, we'll send people some messages just to reward them for asking very insightful questions. But it's such a good community to have, like the kind of raw and bone feeding community. Like, I can see people have been answering the people's questions in the chat, which I just think is so helpful. Like, what a lovely kind of collective group of knowledge. And I mean, I think there's even a few people that are kind of have different opinions on how they feed bones and things like that, and it's all really helpful. Like, as long as you're being really safe, and as long as you're checking poo, and as long as you're supervising your dog, there's lots of ways to do it. So thanks everyone for listening. Really, absolutely brilliant. And Jessica was saying she works for an independent raw store, and Diana, bless you, Diana, saying that Diana has said that I have done a video which is called Bones and How to Feed Them. You can find it on my website. My website is holisticvet.co.uk. It's a vid. It's about an hour and a half, an hour and 40 long, and it's 10 short lessons in how to feed bones. And I hope that that's useful for you. Jump onto that, and you're really, really welcome to look at that. And if you do run a raw store, you want to refer people to that to answer the questions that you'll be asked. You know, you'll be asked the same questions every single day. I've answered all of these questions in that short video, and then they can then come back to you, and you can answer maybe more case specific questions. So Bones and How to Feed Them, it's either on Vimeo or it is on my website, and you're very welcome to that. If you'd like to contact Verm-X, they are, you can if you Google Verm-X, Verm-X for their products, really, really fabulous for gut health, for helping with the worm issue. That's wonderful. Great. So I'm going to say, sorry, shouting out Alex as well, just for thanks for your amazing comments and stuff. And Alex is at DD the Sprolly on Instagram for absolutely stunning Foodie Friday raw bowls. If anyone's ever looking for inspiration, it's quite breathtaking.
They only look like that on Friday. Every other day of the week, they're just splodged on the plate. So. Okay, that's amazing, brilliant. And I'd really like to thank you, Rosy, for coming along and for making all these things happen. That's absolutely brilliant, and lots of great questions. And Alex, you have just donated your time for the good of raw, for the good of dogs. I'm an advocate for it. I love feeding raw. I love making sure that my dog's happy and healthy, and I love supporting some great organisations that promote natural health for our pets as well. So I'm happy to spend my time here. Amazing. Well, we think you're fantastic. We think Dee Dee's the bee's knees. So thank you very much. I'm going to say a big thank you to you guys. There's been loads of people on tonight. It's really, really been great. Any questions about Verm-X, then have a chat with them. You can go to, if you want to contact me, you can contact me on my website, holisticvet.co.uk. All very easy. And Alex is on Dee Dee the Sprocker on the Instagram. Sprolly. Sorry, Alex, just say it once again so that people have it ringing in their ears when they go. if you want to. It's DD the Sprolly on Instagram.
DD the Sprolly.
Or if you go on Verm-X's Instagram page as well, you'll be able to find her on the grid there.
There you go. Okay, fabulous. Great. Guys, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to press the red button here, but I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you. It's been great. From the doctor, gut doctor, say goodnight and all the very best. Take care.
Bye, everyone.